Welcome back to the Author's Edge. This is where we are here for you. If you're an author or aspiring to be one, you are in the right place to hear insider tips that could transform your approach to authorship, to marketing yourself and your book. Today, we're joined by one of my favorite authors and clients and people, my brilliant friend, Tracy Otsuka, certified ADHD coach, podcast host, attorney, former real estate worker, and now author of the game-changing ADHD for Smartass Women, How to Fall in Love with Your Neurodivergent Brain. And I thank her so much for helping me fall in love with mine. Not only has Tracy written an unprecedented guide that empowers women, not just with ADHD, but empowers women, period. But she's also mastered the art of connecting with her listeners and with her readers and growing her presence as an author. So whether you're a debut or you are a seasoned author or maybe media contributor, Tracy has insights on marketing and building an audience and launching a book that are invaluable. So if you're ready to grow your readership or connect with your future readers and increase sales without reinventing the wheel, let's dive in. Welcome, Tracy.
Well, thank you for having me. This has been long coming.
No,
I've been telling
kidding.
you for how long you need to start a podcast.
3 years.
I'm going to be on your podcast, and now there's a podcast. I love it.
Yeah. I think it started when we started with your proposal.
Yeah.
You're like, you should start a podcast. I'm like, what? I
so
can
much
barely turn
to
on my
say.
computer. I don't know anything about technology. And that was scary for me. Just like publishing is scary for a lot of people. Just the industry itself. I feel like it's a locked box. And that's why I'm here. I'm on a personal mission to be everyone's literary Sherpa.
Yeah.
So, Tracy, I'm going to just go way back. Before your book was published, before you even had a publisher or an agent, you knew that you had to do more. You had a podcast that was increasing and had listeners in 160 something countries. And that was your focus. You were head down. And then what made you say, I need to write a book, or this needs to be a book?
I don't really know, other than in the back of my head, I had always had the goal of writing a book. I had no idea what the book was going to be on, but I knew I wanted to write a book. I also knew that I couldn't self-publish because with my ADHD brain, it just would never get done. So I knew I needed a big publisher behind me that kind of wielded a big stick with deadlines so that I would absolutely get this book written. I also knew that we needed to reach more women because 75% of all women with ADHD are actually not diagnosed. So it was just another arm, I guess. It seemed like the next natural thing to do, right? We had 7 million. Well, at the time, I think we had 2 million downloads on the podcast.
Yeah, right. 2 million.
And I was like, okay, how do we make the reach greater? How do we get our message out to more women? And it seemed like a book was the next natural thing to do.
Right. So that's the thing. A lot of people feel like I've done what I can do in my little pond. And sometimes it's a big pond. You had a big pond and you start to know that you're spilling over and you just don't know where to go. How do I do it?
Yeah.
But you knew it needed to be done.
Well, and the other thing too is that when I looked at the books that were out there, there was maybe one or two about women and ADHD. And, they're by and large not strength focused. It's, ADHD is a disorder and kind of all the things that we should not be able to do, because we have ADHD. And I just did not believe that at all. And so I felt like we need a strength focused book that talks about the brilliance of ADHD because we know that the ADHD brain is a brain of, when we're in positive emotion, we can get anything done and then some. But when we're in negative emotion, focused on our weaknesses, like whoever creates anything worth anything by using their weaknesses, by growing their weaknesses, right? You do it by getting into your strengths. So I just felt like that message wasn't there currently and it needed to be out there in a book form.
Right. Right. And reach a lot more people.
Mhm.
Yes. We're all told, like, gosh, you're late a lot. Maybe we should get you a watch. Like, that's
Yeah,
actually not going to help me.
not
Because
at
I
all.
get hyper focused on
Yeah.
what I'm doing. And I don't want to
Mhm.
go do that because I want to do the one more thing of the thing that I love,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
is really just talking to you. So capturing all of that, once we met, capturing all of that and into a format that, you can't just dump your brain into a book.
Oh,
I mean, it would be great if we could, but that's a lot. And that would be, even if you did that, it would feel more like a textbook because there was so much storytelling.
yeah.
Every time you would tell me another story, I'd say, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we're recording this because that's going to go into the book. Because you would be explaining something to me about ADHD. And then I would ask you, give me an example. And you would tell me a hilarious story. That is what makes your book so good, which I think a lot of people don't understand.
And I think what worked so well with us is, I don't know if you remember this, but you were discovering your ADHD. And so that partnership, right, of, oh, well, this is a story that goes along with what we were just talking about, it really connected. But the truth of the matter is, I didn't know how to write a book. I had absolutely no idea. I didn't know that you needed a book proposal. I thought you just went and wrote a book. So absolutely 100% certain. And I had looked around different people to work with, but nothing really clicked. 100% certain that had I not met you, there would have been no book because you just laid it out very clearly as far as that book proposal, right? And all the marketing and all of, what needed to be done. I had no idea that you literally are putting together a marketing proposal when you're creating this book proposal. That's what it is, along with those chapters, which, with my ADHD brain, I can't really write a chapter summary. I have to write the chapter and then I can cut it down into the chapter summary.
Right. Right. I know you did like 10 times the amount of work on you're like, well, I have half the book written, but that's the thing. So time out for a little sidebar. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. We're so excited you're here. And know that your journey to be an author, when you're an expert, if you're teaching at the university or have a podcast or you're a medical practitioner and you have an interesting method, don't write your book first. In nonfiction, your book is sold on spec, which means you need a book proposal. And the thing about a book proposal is all of it, or well, I should say, none of it is part of your manuscript. All of the elements are positioning of you.
Mm-hmm.
You are the brand and your book is the product. Yes, you will attach 2 sample chapters, but the entirety of the book proposal is about marketing your message. Who's the audience? So the term book proposal makes it sound like it's 2 pages. It's 50 pages, friends.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't know that, or you think, oh, well, an agent asked for what I already have, so I'm going to send it to them, or the publisher I want to pitch doesn't require a book proposal, let me tell you, they're going to send you to a Google form and the questions are going to be very low stress. Describe your audience. And you're going to say, people who love self-help books.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to say, well, that is dumb. That is, you cannot ad-lib your way to pitching your book. And if you don't have those power statements that are quantifiable, prepared so that you can copy paste into a very easy to look at Google form, you are missing your shot because a no from an agent is a no from that agent forever for
Mm-hmm.
that book.
Mm-hmm.
Period. So don't blow it. Okay, now back to our regular scheduled program with Tracy. People still, it's hard to find this information. So if you don't know it, I'm here to tell you a book proposal it is a brand plan for your book and for you. And you cannot wait until your book comes out to start speaking on your topic, to step forward, because no one is waiting for your book unless they know you first. The trust starts with you, which, Tracy, you already had that trust because you had a baked in podcast, but we still had to put together a presentation within the book proposal that showed here's how she reaches people other than her podcast listeners. Because publishers get lots of pitches from lots of people who have lots of numbers. And sometimes they get pitches from people with 0 numbers, and they still do buy those books because it's clear how the author is going to reach or already is visible related to their topic.
I mean, they're looking at, can they sell this book? Is this book going to make me look good, right? Is it something that I feel is going to sell? And you've got to convince them that they're not going to lose their shirt on your book.
Yeah. They are in business.
Yeah.
And they do not buy your book based on the merits of your message. They are not your convert. Even if they think, gosh, this is really important.
Yeah.
This book should be in the world. That is not a business reason for them to spend the publisher's budget on your book. In the same way, a real estate developer does not look at a house and go, wow, it really has great bones. We should really save it. They look at it and say, if I invest in this teardown, is it going to sell? Even if they care personally.
Right.
That's not what's at stake. And I think a lot of people think, but this book is so important. Like, well, prove it, because it's not the publisher's job to be your audience. And they are really looking at you as the brand and your book as the product, which once you did query agents and pitch agents, which I think we did inside of like a day or two, we queried 11 agents because that is what I like to do, 11 agents. And you know what's a gift? A fast no. I love a fast no. But you got an agent responded to you, and how quickly was it?
I thought it was 7 minutes, but then you went and looked back, and I think it was maybe like 17 minutes. I don't know.
That's
it was
right.
fast.
It was 17. We were still on a Zoom call.
Yeah, we were still talking.
Yeah. And you got 4 offers on consecutive days. And let this be a lesson to everyone. It was like December. I mean, you can query agents and you can pitch publishers all year long. They don't close, just like online retailers don't close. You can buy anything you want all the time. And you got 4 offers, and then you got the delightful task of meeting with all of them and trying to figure out, what did you really want? I gave you a list of, here are things to think about. But for those of people who are emailing me saying like, I feel like I should wait until agents are less busy. Why? They're looking for an easy sale.
Well, and the thing is, they know what they're looking for. So if you ping them in their email inbox, that's what they're looking for. I don't think it matters what time of year, because they got back so quickly. Like they knew what they wanted.
Yeah. They're always glancing. Like I'm always glancing at my spam folder too. And there's always something in there that's not supposed to be spam. You're always looking, and on the weekends. So agents don't close. Publishers don't close.
We have phones.
Yeah, I know. Right. So what steps did you take to understand what women really needed in your book? Because again, you had this massive knowledge and hundreds of podcast episodes and transcripts, but you can't stuff that into a 300-page book.
I actually started there. So I started at the podcast and I looked at all of the episodes. And then from the episodes, I started to pull out the sections where these questions came up all the time and where my point of view was different than what was currently out there and what most people believe about ADHD.
Yeah.
I think it was as simple as that. And then I think I talked to you about it, right?
Yeah. I think a lot of things came up that were ahas, and the criteria for the content was what do people believe and what is your opinion? Because it's
Yeah.
only interesting if your opinion is different
Yeah. Yeah.
and is something that people wouldn't expect. So it
Hmm.
has to also be counterintuitive or provocative or, a flick to the forehead to the masses that like we're all thinking about it wrong. And that's what makes the book pitch so
Yeah.
unique and it stands out. If it was just another compilation of, info about women who need to be more organized, I think it would have been lost.
Yeah. And I really wanted it to be hopeful. So you'd finish reading this book and you wouldn't be beating yourself up about, oh my God, my ADHD brain, because you'd understand that for everything you struggle with is an opposing strength. So let's focus on those.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the book launch because you got an agent and a publisher right away. Your book went to auction and that was lovely. And then we quickly had to draft your book because of speed to get to shelf. But then the launch, what are some of the most effective strategies you use to expand your audience or expand the people you serve and keep them engaged during the launch of the book?
I think probably the most important thing I did was put together a book team. Allison, do you remember? I think there were probably 130 women on that book team. And of those 130 women, I would say that 30 of them were really active. I mean, they were everywhere pushing the book. We had a Facebook group, and it was really fun because I think they too saw this as a mission, meaning I always talk about the ripple effect. You talk to one woman about her ADHD brain and you change her mind, either that now she knows it's an ADHD brain or she understands that there are so many strengths to the ADHD brain. And then she ends up sharing that, well, her behavior is different, right? So her
Right.
kids benefit from it. Her partner benefits from it. Her workmates, everybody, her family, everybody benefits from it. And then they go on out and they tell other people. So they really bought into this ripple effect of how many women's lives we could change. So I would say that was probably, do you agree with that? It was kind of traumatic. So launching a book, like when it actually comes out, and my book came out literally the day after Christmas. And I had totally unexpectedly lost my mom in July. And so I was still kind of, grappling with all of this and then pushing this book forward.
It was a nutty time. And,
Yeah.
You needed to take time, but also that's the time when the publisher is saying, where's your pre-order page and what podcasts are you on? And you were
Yeah.
like, what?
I don't know. You had a whole
Pre-order?
system. You told me, do this, this, and this, and I did it.
That's true. And for anyone who's interested in the system, you can get in touch at lanelit.com. But you did need a pre-order page, which is very simple. And I have a template for that. That's my middle name. I have a template for that. But, I wrote it in an afternoon and you zhuzhed it and then it was up because we don't need to overthink the things. We just need to make sure that they exist. And they don't need to be, have bells and whistles. We need to make it easy for ourselves and for the people who are going to come to our websites.
I think that, and I can't remember if you actually said this before we started the podcast or after we started this podcast, but you were talking about how, you started a podcast and there were all these different resources. And you're like, I just want someone to tell me which resource should I use? And that made it so much easier. And I feel like that's what happened here with this book as well. There were so many directions to go in and, ADHD brain, perfectionism, like you want to check everything out, but it moves so fast that you can't. And so the easiest thing was it was your list of, okay, you need to do this, check it off, do this, check it off. And that's kind of what kept me sane or as close to sane as possible.
We like to let our freak flags fly around here. The thing that people trip up on, and it happens all the time, is this. They want the entire list of what's possible so they can choose. And they think that will help them make an informed choice of what their activities will be.
Mm-hmm.
That is the same as going to the cheesecake factory and knowing that you need to get in and out in an hour, but they hand you the menu and it is 50 pages long and you start reading from the beginning. You know you're going to end up with the strawberry cheesecake. You don't need to read all of them. You're going to look to the waitress and ask, what's the cheesecake that everybody loves? And she's going to give you 2 choices and you're going to choose one. You don't need to read the whole menu.
Yeah.
It's over freaking whelming. And in the same vein, marketing yourself and your book, you don't want a list of everything that's possible. It will shut your brain down. It will hurt your heart. And also, then you have to learn about what each of them entails. No, you don't. You don't need to make cute bookmarks, even though somebody gave you one of theirs and you thought, that's cute, I want to do that. That is a vanity activity.
Yeah.
You don't need it. You do need a pre-order page. If you don't have one, your publisher is going to say, what are you doing to encourage people to order the book before its publication date? I do take issue with the term pre-order page because we don't call it pre-order anything else online. When you order from Ann Taylor and it says this will be delivered in 8 weeks, you're like, whatever. It doesn't say pre-order. It says, thank you for your order. And you know that you have ordered something and it is going to come to your house eventually. You don't call it pre-ordering.
That's interesting. I've never thought about that. But
So
you're right.
we don't have to qualify like order now and it's a pre-order. No, it's a freaking order. So I'm countering, I'm going counter to the what's expected in the conventional wisdom. So when you started promoting the book, you were having to share personal insights, but also the publisher wants the book to sell. How do you do that in a way that feels genuine and not overly salesy? Knowing that, pink is your signature color for sure.
I'm not wearing it.
Well, you look like you're wearing like a shade of pink.
It's Christmas, so,
It's a pinky red. It's more like a poppy, but still, you still had to conduct interviews, but you're not holding your book up saying, and go and buy it now. But you're telling stories and you are a spokesperson for the women who need you. So talk to us about how you approached balancing those personal insights with being a salesperson for the book.
I don't know. I guess I never really thought about salesperson for the book, which my publisher would probably not want to hear. But I really believe that if you can connect with people and again, you can give them hope, you can give them a new way to think about their brain, why wouldn't they want to buy it? Why wouldn't they want to know more? So I think it was more about me just being a good guest that would bring up all kinds of things that maybe they'd never thought about before, and that would motivate them to then go and buy the book, because I believe that everybody wants to know more about who they really are. But ADHD women really do. So if I could give them insights on, things that they never even attached to ADHD, they didn't think it was because of ADHD. They trust you then, right? Because they're looking at their life and saying, oh my gosh, that's ADHD. I'm thinking of like bruxism, like teeth grinding, or chewing on your nails. And you start bringing up all these little things that are also, that are related to ADHD, then they'd want to know more. Okay, well, if she knows about that and I do that, and I've also been diagnosed and I've been diagnosed with ADHD, what else does she know? So I think it was more just authenticity and caring about the reader that kind of pushed this along for me. So I didn't really think about it as, oh, you've got to sell this book. Oh, you've got to sell this book. And so sometimes, I'd be so hyper-focused on changing women's lives by giving them information that connects something in their brain that maybe I missed giving a link, every once in a while. But I know that if I was saying things of value, then they would go search me out and they would go find the book. So I wasn't worried about that. I don't know. Is that an answer?
It's an answer. And I think that the difference here is that when debut authors have to do interviews, they think that they are there to sell the book and they fear having to say to the interviewer, well, I'm an expert in this, and so this is what I know. And nobody actually asks you that.
Mm.
Every nonfiction author, even memoirists, are there because they're serving. They have an expertise or an experience that they feel could inspire, could educate, could entertain, could invite another person to make a change or to be aware of something that they didn't know before. And when you switch that in your head, which you never had to switch it, you were already doing it, then you don't ever come across as salesy because what you're saying is people struggle with this. What they don't know is that they're also great at that. And nowhere do you have to say, because I'm an expert and you don't have to talk about yourself. Nobody cares. You don't even have to give your title. People ask me, what do I call you? I'm thinking, Allison, what else would you call me? No, when I introduce you, what is is it like book coach or author coach? Like, I don't do that. I don't care. You can't find that on my website where I state something. I used to try and explain it. I help people get published. I think it's hard to figure out, especially when you're doing something full time. You have a full time life, you have a full time passion, and you have this much room to get your message into the world because you know that there's a ripple effect and you're trying to do good.
Yeah.
The process to learn about it should be easier. So that's why I show up. If you want to call me book coach, super. But I think that's like calling someone an editor. It's super vague. Writing coach, sure. I'm a great writer, but I also am a publishing coach. I don't know. Whatever you call me, I hope it comes with like a chocolate covered crown. I mean, like it's something really like a candy coated, I don't know, or licorice. I love some licorice, which is weird, but I love some Good and Plenty. You were always showing up. And regarding your book team or your book team's actions, when you showed up for your book team, you never talked about, thank you for helping me promote my book. It was our book. It was, how can we help people?
Yeah.
This book is part of all of us. And you didn't have to apologize for that. But people who had improved their view of themselves and their lives wanted to share what they knew to be true.
Yeah.
And that's why when authors say, I have this many people and my sister's going to help me with a book team, like, girl, your sister's never even going to read your book. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. My sister's never been to my website. I don't know. If she listens to this, I love you, Corey. But don't expect someone who's not invested in your message to be an advocate for you and your book.
That is so true. I mean, even like really good friends, right? If they finally do read the book, it's literally months after it came out. So yeah, you can't rely on any of that. You need to find people who share your mission and they will literally bang down the doors for you. I was so heartened by how many women jumped in and how many, it was probably more than 30. Like our Facebook group was popping and they were posting where they had, told people about the book or where they had posted and different ideas they had. They were recording videos of themselves and they were amazing.
And you didn't have to be there. The other
No.
thing about, avoid asking your bestie or your neighbor to be on your book team is that even if they are like all in on your book team, they are not connected to the people who need your book.
Yeah.
They are connected to, say, 300 people who don't need your book.
Yeah.
The other person who's not a great book team member is the other writers who are in your critique group.
Yes. Yes.
They want what you have achieved, but they're not your audience. They're your peers.
Right.
So even though they are on your side, some of them are just jealous so they can enjoy their jelly. But the others who are on your side, they know the same people you do on
Right.
social. And so them sharing will reach the same people that you will reach. So you've got to think about your book team of you're inviting people to be part of a campaign to help other people. And those are the people who know how to reach the readers that need what you have. So that's my book team.
The other thing that it's kind of a real segue, but you had asked, what were some really helpful things as I was marketing the book? Your blurb strategy. And again, that is other authors, right, who've written books who are willing to jump on and help you. And your templates were so good because I think every author, when they're starting out, they think of, pie in the sky, who are all the people that I could ask to blurb my book? But it's scary. And you kind of think, but I don't know them personally. I didn't know that you did not need to know these authors personally to have them blurb your book. You shared that with me. And I also wasn't sure that it would work. Like, why would they blurb my book if they don't personally know me? But it totally works. And it works really quickly because the way you set it up, you make it so easy for them. And you also explained to me, yes, people want to be associated with a book that, the perception is this is going to be a best-selling book in some fashion. So I was really, really surprised at how many people jumped in, how easy it was for them to jump in, the way you had set it up. They had all these choices and it was almost like what were those things called that you'd fill in the blanks?
Mad Libs.
It was like a Mad Libs. Yeah. So that was enormously helpful. And it was almost like once I had that, then you feel like you've got so much credibility behind the book that it makes it that much easier to then get out there as the front person and start pitching the book.
Right. The blurb strategy is tough because people think when you're asking someone to blurb your book, which is to give you an endorsement that you can use in marketing, that you are asking them to read the whole book and write a book review. And
I thought that.
Right. I mean, imagine if somebody sent you their book and a request. What they're saying is, here's some homework.
Yeah.
Please write a 5-page theme about it. And it's due in 3 weeks. Nobody can do that. And that is one of the 6 types of book reviews.
Yeah.
And if you want to know more about the 6 types of book reviews, I have a podcast episode and we'll link to that. But that's one way. Another way is to know that the person who's endorsing your book is actually endorsing your message.
Yeah.
They know that you are legit. They might flip through some pages, but they're literally saying, this book is needed in the world. If you are a person who struggles with being on time, or you've ever been called a daydreamer, you might have ADHD and it might be the key to your new business. And I mean, I'm just riffing at this point, and I know I didn't include that, but that would have been a blurb that we could have presented to someone who's a sales coach. And they don't necessarily have to be an author, but maybe they are.
Well, they're in sales.
They're in sales, right? So what we want to do is think about the people who already have some kind of following. They're already serving a group of people, and they are looking for trusted sources to also present to the people they serve.
Yep.
That is a different way of looking at it than people have audiences and they want to be able to target their audiences with more of what they think they need. That makes it sound like you are stuffing vegetables down their throat, and that you are targeting people makes it sound like you're hunting them. You are not a predator and they are not your prey. You do get to connect with someone who is going to thank you for connecting with them. Otherwise, who's going to tell them about your book? they're going to say, oh my gosh, I wish I had this when I was starting my business, or wish I had this right after I had my baby when I suddenly thought I lost my mind and everybody told me it was anxiety. No, it was late onset ADHD. Thank you very much. That's my personal story. So that's for later. You do reach out to people. You have to make it easy for them to say yes.
Yes,
Which
exactly.
means
And just
bullet
because
some
they write a
things out.
blurb, they're not going to help you push your book. No, they're just writing a blurb because there's like a similar audience. They want to be associated with it. You've made it easy for them. So you've made it so easy they can't say no. And then the other thing that I forgot was on the book group that we put together where they were so helpful were, do we call them testimonials on Goodreads and Amazon? Are they testimonials?
Yeah. Well, they're reader reviews. Yeah.
Reviews. That's right. They were so amazing there. I mean, they just jumped in. And again, even with that, we made that easy for them, right? We kind of gave them sort of a Mad Libs of what they were going to hit on with sections, obviously, that they're going to fill in their actual, what they would want to say.
Mm-hmm.
But if you give people the structure, especially a lot of women with ADHD, which is who was on our book team, you know, we need the structure. You give us the structure, we are all there. We're going to change it all up, but at least we have a place to start.
Right. Nobody likes a blank page.
Yeah.
Nobody's really knows how to write a book review that is helpful to the person who doesn't know about the book. So here's what usually happens. I love this book. I'm so glad I read it, is essentially what people's reviews are. That's not helpful because that's like an empty compliment.
Right.
Like, you are so nice. Like, if you've ever gotten, like, you're such a great team member. I mean, even like performance reviews at work, you're a great leader. In what way? How does this help the team? How does my method serve clients? How does this book show up? And an empty endorsement does nothing.
Right. Yeah, you might as well not include it. Right? It just feels.
It serves nothing.
Yeah.
But it feels good to you. So you can get a tattoo of it somewhere. But if it doesn't help the person who comes across your book and thinks, is this for me? If the review doesn't say that it's for them, then it hasn't done its job. So we did have to think through, what do people actually need to hear? And let's make sure that you are getting those back. I will say that some of those reviews were so good. They were just the reader reviews.
Yeah.
You started to keep track because you can use those in your marketing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. One more question. If there's one piece of advice that you wish someone had told you about getting your book published and marketing your book, what would that be?
So there's an author who you've also worked with. And she said to me, she was a year ahead of me, Miriam. And I remember Miriam saying to me that, oh my gosh, you know, after writing this book, you know, she just felt so confident about her book. And she felt she was a much better writer. And so I was always looking for that. And I will tell you, after I finished writing the book, I was like, that is the hardest thing that I have ever done in my life, which is why it was such a miracle that it got done. I obviously have a very different brain than Miriam. She's much more, you know, linear, even though she also has ADHD.
We're talking about Miriam Schulman, author of Artpreneur, a step-by-step guide to making a sustainable living from your creativity. And she's also the podcast host of The Inspiration Place.
Yeah.
So we'll put all of that in the show notes. But for those of you who don't know, I helped Miriam get her.
Yeah. So that's how I found out about you, I think, was through Miriam. So anyway, I just really expected that everything would get easier. And it just seemed to get harder and harder. However, once it was all done, and I remember I got my first review in Publishers Weekly. And I just thought that what I had written was total crap. Like, it was going to get panned. Nobody was going to like it. I'm not like Miriam. I did not feel like, oh my God, I'm a much better writer after. It just seemed like, frankly, a shit show. It was hard, you know, just to get me to sit still for literally every weekend. I was writing, the whole weekend I was writing that book. And I really did not feel that positive emotion. However, Once the book came out and I got or maybe Publishers Weekly, it gives you a review before, right? Before it comes out. I got that review and I can't even begin to tell you what a relief it was, because I couldn't see that this was actually a really great book because I was so close to it. You kept telling me, but I couldn't see it. And it wasn't until after it came out and it started getting the accolades and it got really great reviews, because my hope was, could I do what I did with the podcast, where I would regularly get emails and messages, DMs from women saying it changed their life? Could I translate that into the book? And I wasn't sure I could. But once I started to get all those messages about the book, that's when I finally was able to kind of decompress and see that, no, this is a really good book and I am really proud of it. But when it first came out, I wasn't. I just didn't know what to expect. I was too close to it. I couldn't see it. Everybody else was telling me, oh, it's a great book. I remember sitting with my editor at HarperCollins, and she looked at me and she said, I'm really proud of this book. And I looked at her and I said, really? And she said, yes. And I remember walking away thinking, if she's proud of it, why can't you be proud of it? But my point is simply that if you're in the middle of writing a book, if you even finished, writing a book and you think it's crap, but everybody around you is telling you, no, this is a really good book. This is a really good book. Just hang with it, because it was probably a week ago that I thought about my book and I was like, for the first time, I am really proud that I finished this, that I did it. I am so grateful for you because you got me through it. And it was worth all of the hard work, because this goes down in forever, right? And I think there are a lot of books that come out and there's a big splash and then nothing. I mean, my book came out too, I would say a medium splash, but it has legs. And it consistently sells week after week. And I consistently get messages from people, women, saying, this book changed my life. I am different for having read this book. And now I'm going to do X, Y, Z, blah, 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 blah. So I'm just so grateful that I wrote it.
And it's a year old next week.
Yeah, I know. It's a year old and it's still killing it. So,
Happy birthday book.
That's what you hope for in a book. I mean, initially it was just make sure that all I care about is that people don't totally pan it and it's not crap, right? And then what you want goes up a little higher. Okay, then I want a little bit more than that. And then when it was selected by Amazon editors as one of the top 20 nonfiction books for 2024, then I was like, okay, well, actually, no, it was initially selected as best nonfiction when it came out in January. So, you kind of keep upping the ante. And now, as women are discovering more and more that, no, it's not anxiety, it's not depression, it's actually ADHD, the book is getting more and more legs. And so I just hope that it keeps with that staying power, because it's a hopeful message. And who wants to get a diagnosis and think that, oh, that means I'm a loser and I can't do anything with my life, when it is far from the truth. I just really believe that our most brilliant women, men too, but I write about women and I talk to women, our most brilliant women are likely on the ADHD spectrum.
Wow. I don't think that I can think of a better ending than that. I will ask separately, different segue. What's a book you're loving right now?
So I just finished Revenge of the Tipping Point, Malcolm Gladwell. Have you read it by any chance?
No, I've read The Tipping Point. I haven't read Revenge of the Tipping Point.
It's actually fascinating. I struggle to read, so I tend to be more of an audiobook person. But for whatever reason, because I bought all of Malcolm Gladwell's books, I purchased the book and I read it on a plane on the way home. I just found it fascinating, especially given what's going on in our world right now. It's so incredibly relevant. But the book that I'm reading right now that I really love is called Mind Magic. And it is by a neuroscientist named James Doty. And it's all about the neuroscience of manifestation, of getting what you want. And I used to think manifestation was so hippy-dippy and woo-woo and not true and blah, blah, blah. And so it's so nice to finally have a book from a neuroscientist that actually explains there's nothing hippy-dippy about it. It's common sense, Whatever you focus on, you're going to get more of that. And if it's good, you're going to get more good. You're going to see more good, versus if you're constantly focusing on everything that isn't going right, you're going to see more of that.
Yep. Focus on the good.
Yeah. Everything's always working for you. Even the things that, you think that, that was a failure. No, you either got what you want or you're learning something, right? You learned something about yourself, what not to do next time. So it's all working out for you.
It is.